front part of the bus, and I went to the rear stateroom, and I thought, well, I'll turn on the radio and see if I can pick up a ball game, because that's what I do in the summertime is listen to a lot of ball games. So I went to the back of the bus and turned on the radio, had no idea where to start, so I just turned down at the end of the dial and just started going up. And lo and behold, I didn't find a ball game, but all of a sudden, I heard a record by Carl and Pearl Butler. I thought, my God, it's the apocalypse. 1992, Carl and Pearl Butler on an FM radio station. I stood there and I listened until it was over, and lo and behold, the next record was by Stonewall Jackson. I said, I have died and gone to heaven right here. I sat down on the couch and I sat there mesmerized for about 20 minutes trying to figure out where this music was coming from. After I'd been listening a little while, these dulcet tones came out of the speaker, and the announcer identified himself as Eddie Stubbs. I was listening to WAMU, a public radio station, as you've heard earlier tonight, from Washington, D.C. I didn't know if the show I was hearing was live or if it was recorded. But after listening to it a little while, I said, I have got to call this radio station. So I called information. I got the number for the station, never stopping to think this was a Sunday afternoon and no operators were going to be on duty at the radio station anywhere, and probably the show was recorded. I didn't know, found out later it was live. But at the time I didn't know. I could not get through to this man, Eddie Stubbs, that I wanted to talk to. When I came back to Nashville, I wrote Eddie's name and the station down on a piece of paper and put it in my billfold. When I got back to Nashville, I wrote Eddie Stubbs a fan letter. I told him what had happened, that I'd been on the bus in Boonesboro, Maryland, sitting out a thunderstorm and listening to him. And I told him that about 30 or 40 minutes into the show, I had gotten up and walked up front in my bus and told my band members to come back here. I want you to hear something. You have never heard anything like this. These are much younger guys, of course. They weren't used to hearing a guy come on and talk about the records, talk about the musicians, explain all about the recordings. It was an educational experience, as we've heard so many people say tonight, to listen to this man. I told the guys in my band, I said, you've never heard this, but this is how it used to be, and this is how it still ought to be. Eddie answered my letter. We became good friends. He told me a few years later he was going to move to Nashville. We spent a couple of Saturdays and Sundays riding around looking for apartments when he first moved here. I think you finally moved into one that we found, or one of the apartment complexes that we found. Nashville wouldn't be the same without you, pal. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're a part of it. When Eddie hosts these intimate evenings down here, sometimes I will go up to him at the Opry, and I'll know maybe he had a certain person on earlier that week, and I'll say, how did it go? And if it really went well, Eddie will say, it was an anointed evening. This has been an anointed evening.
Bill Anderson, if you're just joining us. Eddie Stubbs, celebrity salute to 30 years in radio. I'm Bill Cody, and we're live at the Country Music Hall of Fame.